These twins aren't mine. You're only after my fortune." 5 years later, their faces revealed everything. Hi, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to Mr. William Chronicles, where we unravel the stories that life writes in the spaces between love and loss. Before we begin, let me speak a little prayer over your life. May you have the strength to rebuild from ruins, the discernment to guard your peace without building walls too high to see over, and the quiet courage to recognize a changed heart, not to excuse the past, but to honor the possibility of your own future. You're just after my money. These twins? They're not mine. The ultrasound images fell from Amelia Carson's hands and scattered across the polished hardwood floor of Travis Holland's downtown loft. Black and white proof of two lives growing inside her, now lying like evidence at a crime scene. But Travis had already delivered his verdict without looking at a single one. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that their betrayal didn't just break your heart? It shattered your understanding of reality itself? That's where Amelia stood that October evening, watching the man she loved transform into a stranger wearing a familiar face. "Travis, please, just look at them." Her voice trembled as she bent down to gather the images, her pregnant belly making the movement awkward and humiliating. The doctor confirmed it. Twins. Yours and mine. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, his reflection distorted in the glass. When he finally turned, the late afternoon sun behind him cast his face in shadow, unreadable and cold. The doctor said what you paid him to say. His voice carried that particular tone wealthy men reserve for people they believe have tried to fool them. "You think I don't know how this works? Women target men like me every single day. You were just better at it than most." The words landed like physical blows, each one precisely aimed. 6 months ago, this same man had held her hand on the beach and told her he'd never felt this comfortable with anyone. 3 weeks ago, he'd fallen asleep with his arm around her waist, his breathing steady against her neck. Yesterday morning, he'd kissed her forehead and said he was thinking about their future together. Now he was calling her a liar. "Target you." Amelia's voice came out smaller than she intended. She forced strength into her words. "I fell in love with you, Travis. I never asked you for anything." He laughed, and the sound was uglier than anything she'd ever heard from him. "You mentioned your mother's medical bills exactly once. Very casual. Very strategic. Just enough to let me know you had financial pressure. That's how it starts, right?" Amelia felt something crack inside her chest, some fundamental belief about who this man was and what they meant to each other. She thought about the trip they took to the coast, where he told her he wanted to build something real with her. She thought about the morning she realized she was pregnant and felt joy instead of fear, because she believed he would want this too. "My mother's bills." She repeated his words slowly, tasting the bitterness. "I mentioned them because you asked why I looked tired. Because I'd been up all night on the phone with her insurance company. That was me being honest with you, not manipulating you. And then you got pregnant." He took a long drink from the glass he'd poured, his eyes never leaving hers. "Right after I mentioned updating my will. You don't think that's convenient?" Convenient. Heat rose in her face, anger finally cutting through the shock. "You think I planned to get pregnant? We were careful, Travis. Things happen. Don't." He pointed at her, liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. "Don't act like I'm unreasonable for protecting myself. I've been through this before. I know how the game is played." There it was, the ghost that had haunted their entire relationship. Jessica Martinez, the woman Travis never wanted to talk about, whose shadow fell across every vulnerable moment they shared. "I'm not her," Amelia said, her voice breaking despite her efforts to keep it steady. "Whatever that woman did to you, I'm not her. These babies are real. This pregnancy is real." That's exactly what she said. Travis finished his drink and set the glass down with a sharp click. Word for word, actually. She had ultrasounds, morning sickness, the whole performance. Even had a fake miscarriage scheduled for after the wedding. "I found out 3 days before we were supposed to get married that she was never pregnant at all." Amelia absorbed this information, understanding flooding through her along with desperate hope that maybe if she could just make him see the difference, they could get through this. Travis, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's horrible and cruel. But I'm standing here actually pregnant, carrying your children. Not one baby, two. Twins. You can feel them moving if you just... He stepped back as she moved toward him, his body language closed and defensive. I'm not doing this. I'm not falling for the same trick twice. It's not a trick. Her voice rose, echoing in the vast space. These are your children. We made them together, and they're coming whether you believe in them or not. Then I guess you'll have to figure that out on your own. Travis walked to his desk and pulled out a business card, holding it out with the impersonal courtesy of a stranger. This is my lawyer. If you want to pursue this legally, that's your right. But I'm not playing the role of devoted father for someone who's been playing me for a fool. Amelia stared at the card, not taking it. She looked at the man she loved, really looked at him, and saw clearly for the first time how deeply his walls went, how completely he had protected himself from ever being hurt again, even if it meant destroying something genuine. I never wanted your money, Travis. She spoke quietly now, all the fight draining from her body. I wanted you. The man who danced with me in empty parking lots and told me about his dreams. I wanted the person I thought you were, not whoever this is. That person doesn't exist, he said flatly. That was just the version of me stupid enough to let someone get close. Consider this me getting smart again. Amelia felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. She straightened her spine and looked directly at him, memorizing his face because she knew this was the last time she would willingly be in the same room with him. I'm going to raise these babies, and I'm going to love them with everything I have. And I'm going to tell them the truth when they ask about their father, that he was too broken to let himself be loved, and that his loss is so much greater than theirs. Because they'll have me, and you'll have nothing. She turned toward the door, the ultrasound images still clutched in her hand. Amelia. His voice stopped her at the door, and for one fractured second, she let herself hope that he was about to take it all back. She turned back. Don't contact me again unless it's through my lawyer. I mean that. She nodded once, not trusting herself to speak, and walked out into the hallway, where the elevator stood waiting. The doors closed on Travis's world, on the life she had imagined, on the man she had loved, who turned out to be someone else entirely. She made it all the way to the lobby before the first sob broke free. By the time she reached the street, she was crying so hard that a concerned stranger asked if she needed help. I'm fine, Amelia lied, one hand on her swollen belly where two hearts beat steadily, oblivious to the fact that their father had just erased them from his life before they even had names. Behind her, high above the city, Travis stood at his window and watched her figure disappear into the crowd. His hand pressed against the glass, something hollow settling into his chest like a stone he would carry for years. He told himself repeatedly that he had made the only sensible choice, that he had protected himself. But 5 years later, two little faces in a gallery would force him to confront the truth he'd refused to see, that love doesn't require belief to be real, and some mistakes cost you everything. If you've ever had your heart broken by someone you trusted completely, show some love by hitting that like button. Subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles for more stories about love, loss, and redemption. And drop a comment telling me, would you ever forgive someone who did this to you? I want to hear your thoughts. Amelia learned that survival has a taste metallic and bitter, like blood in your mouth after biting your tongue to keep from screaming. The twins came on a Tuesday evening in early spring, their arrival marked by a pain so consuming Amelia forgot her own name for hours. She labored alone in a hospital room with fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying insects, attended by nurses who were kind but ultimately strangers. When Miles emerged first, his cry was sharp and immediate, a sound that tore through the sterile silence and sealed his place in the world. Amelia wept, not from pain, but from a sudden, terrifying understanding that this sound would now be the compass for the rest of her life. Lily followed minutes later, quieter than her brother, her eyes wide and already searching the bright, cold room as if looking for someone who wasn't there. "Do you want to call anyone?" a nurse asked gently, her voice soft with a pity that made Amelia's skin prickle. Amelia shook her head, because there was no one to call who could fix the fundamental wrongness of bringing two perfect lives into the world without the person who had helped create them. The hollow space where Travis should have been felt wider and deeper than any joy. So she took her babies home to a one-bedroom apartment that smelled of fresh paint and desperation. She learned to function on sleep measured in minutes rather than hours, her body moving on an autopilot fueled by pure necessity. She learned to nurse twins while sitting on the floor because the couch made her back scream. A symphony of discomfort played to the soundtrack of their competing cries. She became a master decoder. This wail meant hunger, that whimper meant a wet diaper, and the soft, inexplicable sadness that sometimes overtook Lily in the middle of the night was a grief that seemed too old for someone so new. The hardest part wasn't the physical exhaustion. The hardest part was the loneliness that felt like drowning in plain sight. She would sit in the rocking chair at 3 a.m., a baby nestled in the crook of each arm, and feel so completely alone that she understood why people talked to God. She didn't believe in God particularly, but she talked to him anyway, bargaining, pleading, and sometimes just reporting on her day, her whispers the only adult conversation she had for weeks. Rosemary Hinkle appeared in Amelia's life like an answer to prayers she hadn't known she was making. The elderly woman lived across the hall and showed up one evening when Amelia was crying on her doorstep, unable to get her key in the lock while juggling 2 diaper bags and 2 infant car seats. Rosemary didn't ask permission or offer platitudes. She simply took a bag, held a baby, and started helping. She became a fixture, appearing at strategic moments with a casserole, a bag of groceries, or a piece of hard-won wisdom. "You're doing better than you think," Rosemary told her one evening, watching Amelia try to soothe a frantic Miles. "Nobody gets a prize for suffering beautifully. You just have to survive until surviving gets easier." Amelia went back to work when the twins were 3 months old. She had taken a position as a hospital administrator, a job that paid enough to keep them fed and housed, but not enough to stop the constant, low-grade hum of financial anxiety. She worked during the day while Rosemary watched the twins, and at night, after they were asleep, she did freelance medical billing, her eyes burning from the blue light of the screen. But there were also moments of pure, undiluted joy. Miles's laugh sounded like wind chimes, bright and musical, capable of cutting through any fog of fatigue. Lily was more serious, watching the world with a careful artistic attention. But when she did smile, it was like witnessing something sacred. Amelia would catch herself staring at them while they slept, memorizing the curves of their faces, the tiny fists curled under their chins. She saw Travis in them constantly. Miles had his father's nose and the distinctive cleft in his chin. Lily had inherited those startling green eyes. At first, Amelia had flinched at these resemblances, the features feeling like accusations. But as time passed, she stopped flinching and started feeling something closer to vindication. These children were living, breathing proof of the truth Travis had refused to believe. She met Grant Merrick at a parent group for single mothers. Grant had a daughter close to the twins' age, and they bonded over terrible coffee and shared war stories about daycare costs and the specific loneliness of making every decision alone. "You ever hear from a father?" Grant asked one afternoon, his tone casual but his eyes kind. "No," Amelia said, and the word came out clean and final. "He made it clear he wanted nothing to do with us." She told the twins simplified versions of the truth when they started asking questions. Miles, at 4, wanted to know why other kids had daddies and he didn't. Amelia told him that sometimes people aren't ready to be parents, and that didn't mean there was anything wrong with him. Lily never asked directly, but she drew pictures of families with a conspicuous empty space where a fourth figure should be. Amelia saw Travis's face sometimes in magazines or online articles. He looked successful and permanently distant. She trained herself to feel nothing when she saw these images. Or rather, she felt the nothing very intensely, a deliberate emptiness that proved she had moved on. The twins grew into bright, curious children. Miles was bold and physical, climbing furniture and testing boundaries. Lily was introspective and creative, spending hours drawing elaborate scenes. They fought and loved each other with equal ferocity. There was a night when everything nearly collapsed. Miles had a bad cold, Lily had an ear infection, and Amelia's mother called to say her cancer treatments weren't working. Amelia sat on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m., the tiles cold against her legs, and genuinely didn't know if she could keep going. But then Miles called for her, his voice raspy from coughing, and she went to him, because that's what you do when you're someone's entire world. She held him through the worst of it, and she felt Lily's small, warm hand slip into hers in the dark, offering comfort even though she felt terrible herself. In that moment, Amelia felt something shift. Not happiness, exactly, but a profound recognition. This was her life. Messy, hard, and more beautiful than Travis would ever understand. She had survived. She was surviving. And for now, that was enough. If you're still following this journey with us, it means you are invested and we appreciate. Show some love for Amelia's journey. Hit that like button and subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles for more stories of resilience. Are you on #Team Amelia? Let me know in the comments. Travis Holland had perfected the art of moving through life without feeling it. 5 years had built a fortress around him, constructed from work, wealth, and the absolute certainty that he had made the right choice. He attended charity events and gallery openings not out of interest, but as a mandatory part of his curated existence, a performance of a man who was whole. The gallery opening was one such obligation, a corporate-sponsored youth art initiative. He moved through the crowded rooms, a glass of champagne in his hand, seeing shapes and colors on the walls, but registering no meaning. His mind was on a merger, a stock price, anything but the art surrounding him, until a splash of color in the children's section caught his eye. It was a large canvas, ambitious for someone so young, a self-portrait. The style was unrefined but bursting with raw talent, an emotional depth that made the professional pieces in the main hall seem sterile by comparison. He moved closer, his steps slowing as a strange, cold dread began to pool in his stomach. The girl in the painting had green eyes. Not just any green, the Holland green, the distinctive, almost unnerving shade that had marked every member of his family for generations. His own personal signature staring back at him from a child's face. His eyes snapped to the nameplate. Self-portrait by Lily Carson. Carson. The floor seemed to tilt beneath him. Amelia. His breath hitched. He forced himself to look at the other paintings arranged around it, a series depicting family scenes. One showed 2 children playing. The boy was rendered in profile, and there was no mistaking the cleft chin, the feature that had defined Hooper men for generations, the same one he saw every morning in his own shaving mirror. Twins. The word echoed in the silent, screaming chamber of his mind. The curator's voice beside him was a distant buzz. Beautiful, isn't it? That young artist is incredibly talented, only in kindergarten and already showing this kind of emotional depth. Travis couldn't speak. His throat had sealed shut. Her mother brings both children to every workshop, the curator continued, oblivious to the earthquake she was causing. Despite working full-time, she never misses an opportunity to nurture their creativity. Those are the parents who restore your faith in humanity. Travis managed a stiff nod, his entire world narrowing to the 2 faces on the wall. His eyes, his chin, his unacknowledged bloodline displayed as public art. He pulled out his phone with hands that refused to stay steady, photographing the nameplate, the paintings, the undeniable evidence. He made it to the men's room before the panic attack fully hit. He braced himself against the cool marble sink, his heart hammering against his ribs, his breathing shallow and ragged. The memory of Amelia in his loft, clutching those ultrasound images, her voice breaking as she begged him to believe her, crashed over him with the force of a physical blow. He remembered the images scattered on his floor, proof he had refused to examine because examining it would have required admitting he might be wrong. He had been wrong, catastrophically, unforgivably wrong. He left the gallery without a word to anyone. Sitting in the silence of his car, he stared at the photos on his phone, zooming in on the details that confirmed his nightmare, his reality. These were his children. There was no doubt. He saw his own face reflected in theirs, a truth he had thrown away. He hired a private investigator that evening, not because he doubted, but because he needed to understand the magnitude of what he had missed. The report came back within days, a file of photographs that made his chest ache with a pain more acute than any panic attack. There was Amelia, walking home from work, her shoulders slumped with exhaustion, grocery bags cutting into her palms. There were the twins Miles and Lily, playing in a modest neighborhood park, their laughter almost audible through the pixels. There were dozens of photos documenting a life that was stable, whole, and resilient, a life that had continued beautifully without him. The report was thorough and devastating. It detailed her double shifts, her night classes, her financial stability that was hard-won and far from comfortable. Most importantly, it noted that Amelia Carson had never tried to contact him, never filed for child support, never used his name. She had simply accepted his rejection, erased him, and built a life from the ruins he had left. That night, surrounded by the oppressive luxury of his penthouse, Travis finally let the full weight of his failure crush him. He called his sister, Landry, his voice a broken thing as he explained about the gallery, the paintings, the children he had denied. When he finished, there was a long, heavy silence. "Are you telling me," Landry said, her voice dangerously quiet, "that you have children you abandoned because of your paranoia?" "I thought she was lying," Travis choked out. "After what happened with Jessica." "Don't." Landry cut him off, sharp as a blade. "Don't you dare use that woman's name to justify what you did to Amelia. You destroyed 3 innocent people because you were too much of a coward to get a simple paternity test." Travis had no defense. The truth was a guillotine. "I need to fix this," he whispered. "You can't fix this," Landry said bluntly. "You can maybe make it less wrong. Those children are growing up. You can never get back what you missed. You don't get redemption, Travis. You get the opportunity to show up and do the work. And you have to accept that it might never be enough." After she hung up, Travis sat in the dark, the ghost of 2 children he had never held haunting the empty space around him. He thought of Amelia in labor alone, of first steps he hadn't seen, of birthdays he hadn't celebrated. He had been so wrong about everything, and the cost of that mistake was a treasure he could never reclaim. This is the moment everything changes. If you can feel the weight of Travis's realization, show us by liking this video. What would you do if you were in his shoes? Could you ever come back from a mistake this big? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The letter sat on Amelia's kitchen counter for 3 days like an unexploded bomb. Travis's handwriting was achingly familiar, a script she had once loved finding on notes left on her pillow. Now, it felt like a violation. She walked past it while making breakfast, packing lunches, and herding the twins through their morning routines, its presence a dark spot in her carefully ordered world. Rosemary noticed it. "Want me to throw that in the bin for you, dear?" she'd asked, her tone making it clear she'd do more than just throw it away. The offer was tempting, a clean, fiery end. But avoiding it felt like giving Travis a power he no longer deserved. Finally, on a Thursday night after the twins were asleep, she opened it. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the pages, and she hated herself for that small, betraying shake. The letter was not what she expected. There were no excuses, no justifications wrapped in lawyerly language. Instead, Travis took responsibility with a directness that felt almost violent. "I accused you without proof," he wrote. "I abandoned our children based on nothing but my own paranoia. I spent years building a life on willful blindness, and it took one painting to show me I had committed the worst act of my life." He told her about the gallery, about seeing Lily's work, about the devastating moment of recognition. "You told me the truth, and I called you a liar. You offered me a family, and I threw it away. I know I have no right to ask anything from you. I know that saying sorry would be grotesquely insufficient." The letter included no requests for meetings, no demands. It simply ended with a phone number and the quiet acknowledgement that if she never called, he would understand. Amelia read it 3 times. A hot, familiar anger rose in her chest, the same anger that had fueled her through midnight feedings and double shifts. How dare he? How dare he suddenly decide to acknowledge reality now, after all the birthdays and scraped knees and lonely nights? But beneath the anger was something more complicated, a reluctant recognition that his words carried the weight of genuine suffering, not performative guilt. She didn't respond immediately. She needed to untangle the knot of emotions in her chest. She talked to Jolene, who advised extreme caution. He had his chance, Amelia. He blew it. You don't owe him anything. She talked to Rosemary, who surprised her by taking a different view. I'm not saying forgive him, the older woman clarified, stirring her tea. I'm saying decide what's best for those babies, not what punishes him most effectively. Amelia spent weeks living with the decision. She looked at Miles and Lily and tried to imagine what she would tell them one day if they asked why she kept their father away when he finally wanted to know them. The answers weren't simple. She also had to confront the ghost in her own heart. She had loved Travis once, deeply, in a way that made her vulnerable to his rejection. Part of her still carried that love, a scar that ached in certain weather. What if she was still weak for him? She started seeing a therapist, Dr. Evans, who asked questions that made Amelia uncomfortable in productive ways. What are you most afraid of if you let him back in? Dr. Evans asked. That he'll hurt the twins the way he hurt me. Amelia answered immediately. That he'll be inconsistent. That he'll disappear again. What else? Amelia hesitated, the real fear a whisper in the dark. That I remember how much I loved him, she admitted softly. That I'll be stupid enough to let him hurt me again. Is loving someone stupid? Dr. Evans asked. It is when they've proven they'll throw that love away. Dr. Evans leaned forward. You've survived 5 years of single parenthood, built a career, raised 2 healthy children. That's not the biography of someone stupid. Maybe the question isn't whether you're strong enough to protect yourself from him. Maybe it's whether you're strong enough to give your children what they might need, even if it's complicated. Amelia called Travis on a Sunday evening when the twins were at a playdate. Her hands shook as she dialed, and she almost hung up twice. Hello. His voice was cautious, guarded. It's Amelia. She kept her voice flat, a sheet of ice over a deep lake. I got your letter. A sharp intake of breath. Thank you for calling. I didn't think you would. I almost didn't. She wasn't making this easy for him. He didn't deserve easy. Do you know what it felt like looking at that envelope for 3 days? I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry for everything. Stop. She cut him off, her tone sharp. I didn't call to hear you apologize. Apologies are words, and words are cheap. I called because I need to decide what's best for Miles and Lily. Miles and Lily, Travis repeated, the name sounding foreign and sacred on his tongue. Those are beautiful names. They're beautiful children, she said, her voice tightening. And they've had a beautiful life without you. That's what you need to understand. You didn't break us. You hurt me, but you didn't break us. We're whole. I know, Travis said, and he sounded utterly destroyed. I saw the photos. You're incredible. Don't do that, she said sharply. Don't put me on a pedestal. I'm not incredible. I'm exhausted and angry and trying to figure out if letting you into our lives will help my children or hurt them. This isn't about us. There is no us. You're right. The fight was gone from his voice. What do you need from me? Amelia had prepared for this. If I decide to let you know them, it will be entirely on my terms. You'll attend therapy and provide proof. You'll respect my authority without question. And most importantly, if you commit to this, you're committing for life. You don't get to walk away again. Do you understand? Yes, he said immediately. Don't agree so quickly, Amelia warned, her voice low and serious. Think about what I'm saying. Being a parent isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up every single day, even when you're tired, even when they're difficult. It's about accepting that you'll never get back what you missed, and that they might never forgive you. Can you actually do that? There was a long pause, a silence filled with the weight of his consideration. I don't know if I can do it, he finally admitted. his voice raw with honesty. "I don't know if I'm capable, but I want to try. Not because I deserve a second chance, but because they deserve to have every possible person who loves them. And I already love them. That has to count for something." "It counts for nothing," Amelia said bluntly. "Love is the minimum requirement. The question is whether you'll show up when love isn't enough to make it easy." "I will," Travis promised, his voice firm now. "I'll show up." Amelia closed her eyes, the future stretching out before her, terrifying and uncertain. "I'll think about it. I'm not promising anything. In the meantime, you'll start therapy immediately. You'll send me confirmation. And you'll wait until I contact you. No showing up at our home. No surprises. Do you understand?" "I understand," Travis said. "Thank you." "I'm not doing this for you," she interrupted, her final word on the matter. "I'm doing this because those children might someday ask me why I kept their father away, and I need to be able to tell them I gave you every opportunity. This is about them. Don't forget that." She hung up before he could respond, the dial tone a sharp period at the end of their impossible conversation. She sat at her kitchen table, the silence of the apartment pressing in on her, and for the first time in months, she let herself cry, not from sadness, but from the sheer exhaustion of carrying everything alone, and the profound terror of letting someone else help carry the weight. This conversation changes everything. If you're invested in their journey, show your support. It fuels this channel. Give this video a like and subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles. What would you have said to Travis? Is Amelia making the right choice? Let us know in the comments. The confirmation emails from Travis's therapist arrived every week like clockwork, a digital testament to his consistency that Amelia filed away with a mixture of skepticism and reluctant hope. Part of her had expected him to fail immediately, to prove her right about his inherent unreliability. But week after week, the confirmations came, and she found herself checking for them with a strange, anxious anticipation. She was still attending her own sessions with Dr. Evans, who was helping her understand that anger and curiosity could coexist. "Feeling multiple contradictory things doesn't make you weak, Amelia," Dr. Evans said. "It makes you human." The decision, when she finally made it, was born from a quiet evening with the twins. They were at the kitchen table, Miles wrestling with math homework while Lily drew in the margins, creating another of her elaborate family scenes. This one had 4 figures. "That's our daddy," Lily said simply, pointing to the tall, green-eyed man standing slightly apart. Amelia's heart stuttered. "What makes you think about him, baby?" Lily shrugged, her small shoulders moving with an innocence that belied the weight of the question. "I wonder about him sometimes. Like what he looks like, and if he thinks about us." Miles looked up, his brow furrowed. "Mom said he wasn't ready to be a daddy. That means he didn't want us." "That's not exactly what I said," Amelia corrected gently, her pulse quickening. This was the moment. "I said he wasn't ready. Sometimes adults make big mistakes because they're scared, and those mistakes hurt other people. But that doesn't mean the people who got hurt did anything wrong." "Was he scared of us?" Lily asked, her voice small. "No, baby. Never of you," Amelia said, her voice firm. "He was scared of something that happened to him before you existed. But that doesn't make it okay that he wasn't here. You deserve better." Miles put down his pencil, his expression serious. "Do you think he'll ever want to meet us?" Amelia took a deep breath. "Actually, I need to talk to both of you about something big." They looked at her with their full, unwavering attention. "Your father knows about you now. He saw some of Lily's artwork and realized he had made a terrible mistake. He wrote me a letter saying he was sorry and asking if he could meet you." Lily's eyes went wide with immediate excitement, but Miles's face closed down, his small body tensing. "Why does he want to know us now? Why didn't he want to know us before?" "Those are really good questions," Amelia acknowledged, her heart aching for her son's guardedness. "And I think if we decide to meet him, you should ask him those things directly. But the important thing is that this is your choice, too. Do you want to meet your father, or do you want things to stay the way they are?" "I want to meet him," Lily said immediately, already bouncing in her seat. "I want to see if he looks like my drawing." Miles, what do you think? Amelia asked softly. He hesitated, his lower lip trembling slightly. I don't know, he admitted. What if he's mean? What if he says he doesn't want us again? Amelia pulled him into a hug, his small, sturdy body rigid against hers. I won't let him hurt you. If we meet him, it will be somewhere safe, and I'll be right there the whole time. And if he ever tries to leave again, we'll be fine because we've always been fine, right? Just the three of us. Just the three of us, Miles repeated, the familiar mantra offering a sliver of comfort. The meeting was set for a Saturday afternoon at the Natural History Museum, a place filled with enough wonder to serve as a distraction. Amelia dressed them carefully, wanting them to feel confident. Lily wore her favorite dress covered in stars, and Miles wore his superhero shirt, even though the sleeves were getting a little short. In the car, Lily was a bundle of nervous energy. Are you nervous, Mama? A little, Amelia admitted, catching Miles's quiet gaze in the rearview mirror. Are you? A little, but also excited. Is that weird? That's not weird at all, baby. It's okay to feel lots of different things at the same time. They arrived early, and Amelia guided them toward the dinosaur exhibit, wanting to be settled when he appeared. And then she saw him. Travis stood near the towering T-Rex skeleton, scanning the crowd. He looked older, the lines on his face more deeply etched, and somehow smaller, as if the last 5 years had sanded down his edges. He spotted them at the same moment, and the expression that crossed his face was so raw and unguarded, a mixture of awe, terror, and devastating hope, that Amelia had to look away. He walked toward them, his steps measured but sure. Amelia, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Then he knelt, bringing himself to the twins' eye level. Hi, I'm Travis. I'm really glad to meet you both. Lily studied him with an artist's intense scrutiny. You look like us, she declared. Mom said you would, but I didn't believe her. I do look like you, Travis agreed, a tear escaping before he could wipe it away. You have my eyes, and Miles has my chin. Miles's hand went immediately to his chin. Did you give it to me on purpose, or did it just happen? It just happened, Travis said, a genuine smile touching his lips for the first time. That's how genetics work. Sometimes you get features from your parents, whether they plan it or not. Like how he didn't plan to not have a dad, but it happened anyway, Miles said, his voice sharp and precise. Amelia held her breath. This was the test. Travis didn't flinch. He met his son's gaze squarely. That's exactly right, he said, his voice low and earnest. You didn't plan that, and it wasn't fair. I made a terrible mistake a long time ago, and you paid the price for it, which is the worst thing I've ever done. I don't have a good excuse. I was scared and wrong, and I hurt you and your sister and your mom. And I'm sorry. I know sorry isn't enough, but it's all I have right now. Miles absorbed this, his expression not softening, but the hostility in his shoulders easing slightly. Lily, meanwhile, had moved closer, her sketchbook in hand. Can I draw you? She asked. I would love that, Travis said, his voice warm. I've seen some of your work. You're incredibly talented. As Lily began to sketch with fierce concentration, Travis turned back to Miles. Do you want to go see the gemstone exhibit? I heard they have a piece that glows in the dark. I guess, Miles said with affected indifference, but he fell into step beside Travis as they walked. Amelia followed with Lily, close enough to intervene, but far enough to give them space. She watched as they reached the mineral hall, and Miles's eyes lit up at the display of glittering geodes. Travis didn't try to force conversation. He just stood beside him, pointing out a particularly brilliant amethyst. It was a small moment, ordinary and quiet, but it felt monumental. When their hour was up, Lily hugged Travis without prompting, her small arms wrapping tightly around his neck. Miles, after a moment's hesitation, offered a formal handshake, which Travis accepted with equal gravity. Can we see him again? Lily asked Amelia as they walked toward the exit. Amelia looked at Travis, who was watching her with a desperate, hopeful stillness. We'll see, she said. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. It was a possibility. And for now, after everything, that felt like a miracle. The first meeting is full of so many emotions. Which twin did you relate to more? Lily's open curiosity or Miles' protective caution? Let us know in the comments. And if your heart is as full as ours, show some love by liking and subscribing to Mr. William Chronicles. 3 months of supervised visits had established a fragile rhythm. Every Saturday, Travis would appear at the park, the museum, or the library, a constant, careful presence. He learned that Miles would only go on the swings if pushed exactly 7 times, and that Lily needed exactly 3 minutes of quiet observation before joining any game. He learned through patient attention, not grand gestures, and Amelia felt her own defenses, brick by brick, beginning to erode. Then came the phone call that shattered the delicate peace they had built. It was a Tuesday, just after lunch. Amelia was in a budget meeting when her phone vibrated with the school's number. The school nurse's voice was professionally calm, which meant something was very wrong. "Mrs. Carson, it's Miles. He collapsed during recess. We've called an ambulance." The world narrowed to a single, terrifying point. Amelia ran from her office, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. She arrived at the school to find her son small and frighteningly pale on a gurney, an oxygen mask over his face. His eyes, wide with fear, found hers, and she climbed into the ambulance, clutching his hand, whispering promises she prayed she could keep. At the hospital, surrounded by the organized chaos of the ER, a doctor asked the question that turned her blood to ice. "We need a complete family medical history. Is the father available?" With trembling hands, she pulled out her phone and called the number she had never deleted. He answered on the second ring. "Travis," she choked out, her voice breaking. "It's Miles. He collapsed at school. We're at Memorial Hospital. They need you. I need you." The admission tumbled out, stripped of pride or pretense. "I'm on my way," was all he said, his voice sharp with immediate focus. He arrived in under 15 minutes, breathless and disheveled, his usual composure completely gone. He went straight to Miles's bedside, his large hand covering his son's small one. "I'm here, buddy. I'm here now." The doctors took Travis aside for the medical history. When he returned to the waiting room where Amelia was pacing, his face was ashen. "There's a genetic blood disorder in my family," he said quietly, the words heavy with guilt. "My uncle had it. It's rare. They think that's what this is. They need to run tests. If it's positive, he'll need treatment. Possibly a bone marrow transplant." The words bone marrow transplant hit Amelia like a physical blow. "A transplant from who?" "I'm being tested as a potential donor right now," Travis said, his jaw tight. "If I'm not a match, we'll test other family members. We'll find someone." They sat together in the vinyl waiting room chairs, 2 people who had destroyed each other, now bound by a shared, suffocating fear. It was then that Grant arrived, carrying a tray of coffees. His presence, once a comfort, now felt like an intrusion from a different life. "Thank you for coming," Amelia said to him, even as she felt the wrongness of his being there. "Of course," Grant said, his kind eyes moving between Amelia's terrified face and Travis's grim one. "Is there anything I can do?" The test results confirmed the diagnosis, the same rare genetic disorder that had plagued Travis's family. The treatment would be aggressive, and a transplant was their best hope. Travis was tested, and the wait for results was a special kind of torture. During a long stretch in the cafeteria, Grant finally gave voice to the truth hanging between them. "You still love him," he said softly, not as an accusation, but a simple, sad fact. Amelia wanted to deny it, to cling to the safety he represented, but lies had no place here. "I don't know what I feel," she said honestly. "But you're right. I'm not over him. And that's not fair to you," Grant finished for her, his smile gentle. "You deserve someone who's completely present, and I think I always knew I was the safe choice, not the real one." "Safe should be enough," Amelia whispered, tears streaming down her face. "But it's not," he said, taking her hand. "And forcing it won't make either of us happy." He left with a grace that made her cry harder, not for the end of their relationship, but for the clarity his kindness brought. The test results came back. Travis was a partial match, but his sister, Landry, who had rushed to the hospital the moment she heard, was a near-perfect one. She didn't hesitate. "He's my nephew," she said simply, as if that explained everything. It was during this crisis that the final wall around Amelia's heart crumbled. She watched Travis. She watched him sleep in the waiting room chair, his head tilted back at an uncomfortable angle. She watched him carefully explain the procedures to a terrified Miles in simple, honest terms. She watched him hold Lily on his lap when she came to visit, reading her stories while the four dripped into Miles's arm. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Lily, overwhelmed and frightened, walked directly to Travis, who was staring blankly out a hospital window. "Are you scared?" she asked him. He knelt down, meeting her gaze. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm very scared. Are you?" "Yes," she whispered, and then she wrapped her arms around his neck and held on tight. Amelia watched her daughter seek and find comfort in the father she was only just beginning to know, and something inside her broke open, not with pain, but with a long-awaited release. The treatment plan moved forward with Landry as the donor. The prognosis was cautiously optimistic. The crisis had passed its peak. One night, after Miles had been discharged and was resting at home, Travis asked to speak with Amelia on her small balcony. The city lights twinkled below them, a universe away from the sterile hospital world they'd inhabited. "I want to thank you," he began, his voice rough with exhaustion, "for letting me be there. I know I didn't deserve that chance." "You didn't do it for me," Amelia said, wrapping her arms around herself against the chill. "You did it for Miles. That's what being a parent means." "I'm starting to understand that," he admitted. He looked at her, his green eyes earnest in the dim light. "And I'm starting to understand that I can't use money or grand gestures to compensate for actual presence. I just have to be there." Amelia looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't the untouchable man from the penthouse anymore. He was just a man, worn down by life, humbled by his own failures, and desperately trying to do better. "Keep showing up, Travis," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Prove that this isn't just a crisis response. Prove that you can be consistent when things are boring and hard. Do that, and maybe someday we can talk about what comes next. But right now, all I can offer is the possibility of co-parenting that doesn't destroy any of us." "That's more than I deserve," he said, his shoulders slumping in relief. "I'll take it." They stood in silence for a moment, two people who had loved and destroyed each other, finding a fragile new footing in the ruins. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was a beginning. 3 years later, the air on the middle school soccer field was sharp with autumn. Amelia stood on the sidelines, her hands wrapped around a thermos of tea, her gaze fixed on Miles. At 12, he was a force on the field, barking defensive commands with a confidence that made her heart swell. A familiar presence settled beside her. Travis handed her a thick blanket. "Lily said you complained about the wind chill last week. You remember a complaint I made a week ago?" Amelia asked, a soft smile touching her lips. "I pay attention now," he said, his gaze steady on her. "It's a habit I should have developed 12 years ago." The game ended with a shrill whistle. Miles, muddy and victorious, sprinted toward them. "Mom, Dad, we won," he yelled, skidding to a stop before them, his face beaming. The word, Dad, hung in the air, no longer a test, but a simple truth. Travis's eyes glistened as he clapped his son on the shoulder. "You were amazing out there." Later, in the backyard of the house they had chosen together, Lily directed the hanging of fairy lights for their birthday party. "No, Dad, higher. It has to catch the sunset just right." As Travis adjusted the string, his hand brushed Amelia's. Neither pulled away. The contact was warm, familiar, a silent testament to years of shared school runs, quiet dinners, and hard-won trust. He looked at her, the setting sun painting his features in gold. "This life," he whispered, "this normal, beautiful life. I wouldn't trade it for anything." Amelia looked at their children, Miles animatedly recounting his goal, Lily perfecting her masterpiece of light. She looked at the man beside her, no longer a ghost from a penthouse, but her partner in this messy, wonderful life they had built from ashes. She laced her fingers through his. "It's working, Travis," she said softly. "We're working." He squeezed her hand, a silent promise. It wasn't a dramatic ending, but a quiet beginning. A broken family had been rebuilt, not through grand gestures, but through patience, consistency, and the daily choosing love. This family's journey is complete. If their story moved you, honor it by showing your support with a like. How do you feel about Amelia's decision? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles for more tales of redemption and love. Thank you for being part of this family.